You ready?
Ready.
Wonderful. Hi, welcome back to yet another episode of Leaders Unplugged, the podcast where you get to learn all the good stuff about careers and being successful and all that amazing stuff that you'd otherwise have to pay for, probably. Anyway, today we are here with an amazing guest. Her name is Rachel Hardy, and I'm just going to go ahead and get the ball rolling and have her give a little background.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Rachel Hardy, and I am a composer and vocalist, and I also do covers on YouTube, kind of a lot of random stuff going on there. Um, yeah, I don't know how else to introduce myself. That's pretty much it.
Okay, good stuff. So I guess in that case, we'll just kind of go right into kind of how did you get into music and stuff like that?
I feel like I got into music kind of late. Like I took music lessons and stuff growing up when I was younger, but it wasn't until like high school, I'd say, that it like occurred to me that you could do that as a job. Like I knew there were like professional musicians out there, but I always assumed they won some sort of lottery or something, like which maybe is true in a sense for some people, but I don't know, like I I began really enjoying music in high school, and even towards the end of high school, I didn't really think about like, can I try to do this? I don't know. Um, so in grade 12, I kind of was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, music is the only thing I like, so maybe I can go into music teaching. So I did my first year kind of as like a general music studies type thing. I was doing composition, but they give you a chance to kind of pivot after your first year. Um, and at the end of the first year, I kind of decided to bite the bullet and just go full in on composition because that's what I wanted to do. It's pretty scary. I think a lot of like music students can relate to that. Kind of uh, committing to music is a bit of a scary process as a student. But thankfully, I had this like YouTube channel that I started in high school because I failed an audition for a music group in my high school and I still wanted to sing. So I started my own YouTube channel and started making my own like singing covers. And somehow, by some luck, it did really well. So that really helped me in my early years of pursuing like composition and stuff like that because I had this YouTube channel on the side. Um, which kind of gave me more of a chance to practice the craft without needing to work a full-time job because the YouTube was kind of like a part-time job for me. There's a very scattered history of how I got into music, but that's about it.
Wow, that's really cool, the music composition. So like when it comes to that stuff and just like it could be music in general as well or like performing, would you say, and our audience is a lot of college students just like
Oh,
ourselves.
okay, yeah.
And so would you say that it's necessary to go to college to pursue something in music?
That's a tricky question. A lot of people ask that. I think for composition specifically, depending on the type of composition you want to do, yes or no. Actually, I did watch Peter Barber's interview with you guys, and he said something similar, where if you're doing something very classical and like based in theory and technique and that sort of thing, then I think an education is really important. But if you're someone like myself who I've always wanted to go into like writing music for film and TV and games, I'm in games now. That I didn't learn any of those skills that I use on a daily basis when I was in school because the school I went to, there are schools out there that teach that stuff. The one I went to was very like classical music based. So, how to use all the software I use every day. I didn't learn how to do that in school. I had to learn that on my own. Anything about writing for media, I never learned any of that. So, like, pretty much everything that I do now on a daily basis, I didn't learn in school. So, if it were me and I could go back in time, I don't think I would have done it again. But again, it just depends what you're going into. If you want to be writing like chamber music for performance and, stuff like that, or you want to go into orchestration or these things, like I think it is very helpful.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. And like with composition and everything, so you mentioned you're kind of in games now and like how
Mhm.
you like want to do movies and stuff too. That's a very interesting like career path. Like how does one get into that? Like is there like community out there? Like do you like contact the some studio? Like well like how does that process work?
For myself, I actually started pursuing film music. I was a big fan of film soundtracks and stuff like that. And I very quickly discovered that it's a really small community, actually. Like the people who work in that realm, it's a small community. Everyone knows each other. But the hard part is like getting your foot in the door. So what I did was after my third year of university, I emailed probably 40 to 50 media, film companies, anything really, game companies. I sent out my resume. I said, like, I'd love to intern for a month, like, just kind of help around the studio, be able to sit in a bit. Heard back from nobody. Like, not even emails to say, like, no thanks, just nothing. Radio
Oh God.
silence. I heard
Mhm.
back from one studio, and that studio was Hans Zimmer's studio. Um,
Oh my
I
gosh.
I wasn't at Hans's studio. There's like a couple of studios in the same studio that are connected to other composers. So I heard back from Henry Jackman. He was doing Jumanji at the time, but he works in the same studio. They're all kind of like connected. So that was the one that I heard back from, and they were like, "Sure, yeah, come on down. Like, spend the summer here. Sounds good." Um, so, it took like I can't even imagine I can't even estimate the hours that I put into emailing all these people, but it ended up paying off in the end. I went for the summer. I learned a lot. I got to sit in with Hans's team and watch them work, and Alan Meyerson, their mixer, like just learning from the best, really. Um, Met a lot of great friends there. And that was kind of where I got my foot in the door in a sense. I got to know people in the industry, and it all kind of branched out from there. Um, so a bit of luck, a little bit of putting the work in, I guess, to like reach out. It definitely felt bad when no one got back to me, but it worked out in the end. So just persevering through that and putting in the
Mhm.
effort to get
Yeah.
in, I guess. Yeah.
Kind of curious, did you get to meet Hans Zimmer? Have you met him?
I have not actually. I saw him one time. I was there for the whole summer, and I saw him one time because I think he works between two studios. I think he has one overseas somewhere. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But so he wasn't really there too much that particular summer. But I saw him one time. I didn't get to talk to him though.
Oh God.
I did get to go in his studio. I asked his assistant if I could like go in there because I'd seen pictures and I really really wanted to just stand in there for a second, but after like 2 seconds I was like, okay, I don't want to touch anything. So pretty
Yeah,
cool though.
yeah. Yeah. As far as like being in the music industry and everything and like with composition, what is it that you found personality wise that so like whether it be like confidence for example that has
Mhm.
helped you kind of get your foot in the door and like progress in your career, but also what might be some traits that might hinder that, like
Mhm.
for example being stubborn, like not wanting to like do something, and it could be either what you've personally done or like what you've witnessed other people experience as they've gone through this career.
For sure. I think there was a big difference for me between film and games. So I can kind of split it into two parts. But with the film, when I was interning at that studio, I learned very quickly that like you have to have thick skin. Um, because it is a pretty cutthroat industry. And I'm the type of person that's a little sensitive, I think. So I had to let that go very quickly because um yeah, it's you can't let your feelings get hurt in an industry where people are very stark about how they feel about something, or you just gotta get it done. When I went over to games, I found it was a lot friendlier. And I think the same thing kind of checks out. You still have to have thick skin and confidence, I'd say more. Like, um, you need to be comfortable with letting your opinion be heard and learning how to communicate well with people outside of music. That's a really uh, important trait to have. I'd say one thing that hinders a lot of people, especially in games, probably in film as well, is like competition, that like a spirit of competition, if that makes sense. I think that in both industries, there's a lot of room actually for talent. I think people see it as like this very limited resource, which is true in a way, but there's also a lot out there. Um, in games, there's so many games being made. If you want to get into game music, like you can find something to work on out there. There's so much. You just have to, again, put in the effort to like reach out to certain people and throw your hat in the ring. Um, and I think people who have kind of the spirit of competition or like trying to outcompete other composers or artists, it never goes well because it's such a small industry and everyone knows everyone. If you have that kind of attitude, people very quickly latch on to that and um, probably won't want to associate with you as much.
Yeah, no, that I could definitely see that. It's you kind of have to work at it from your own. I mean, to a sense, I think it is like every career is in a sense kind of a competition, but at the same time, if
Yeah.
you're making that your whole personality and stuff like that, and like you're always trying to, you know, make yours better than everyone else's and stuff like that, and you're not really
Mhm.
focused on, the product itself and like the people you're working with and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it can definitely, your product might be good, but your character might not be, and in some cases the product does outweigh it, I think. I guess you'd have more experience on that level, but I think it is also kind of a mix, and that's definitely an important one to focus on.
Yeah, I think like
um,
it's important to like focus on your own journey rather
mhm,
than focusing on other people. And like,
right.
whenever I hear someone talk badly about like another composer, it's just kind of like an ick. It's like, is that necessary? Like just focus
Mhm.
on yourself. Um, yeah, I don't know. You just need to be careful with that stuff when you're working in a really small industry because it gets around easily.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that definitely makes sense. You mentioned what did you mention? Oh, sorry. It just this question came to mind. I don't remember exactly what you mentioned, but you were talking a lot about how you've reached out to people. Is there anything in particular you've noticed that when you have reached out has gotten you like advancements in your career? So like I guess the question I'm trying to ask is uh are there any tips that you've found when reaching out that if someone were to reach out to these companies, they might add in their email like something about their portfolio or whatever it may be?
Yeah, there's a lot of tips I can share about that. I guess the biggest thing is making your portfolio like as accessible as possible. When I worked as a music supervisor at a game company for a few years, so I kind of got to see this from the other end of like people sending me their resumes and their portfolios. If they have to search for like your work, they're not going to. If they can't find your stuff in 5 seconds, they're not going to look for it. So if you're sending something to someone, make it super easy. Like click this link and it goes directly to your reel. It shouldn't go to your homepage. It should go to your reel so that they click it and it's right there and they can watch it. And it's one video with multiple things in it or whatever, as accessible as possible, as easy to digest as possible. That's my biggest tip. And then also just your wording, like, you don't need to send them 10 paragraphs about how awesome you are. Keep it simple, keep it friendly. Yeah. Otherwise, they're not going to read it. That's the other thing. Accessible, short, easy to digest. And if you're attaching a resume, just put that in there too so they could just look at it, I don't know. Those are my biggest tips.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, kind of going into like the um I guess even just first impressions. Like you get that first big moment to either, work with someone who is already really successful, or even just meeting someone who, you're either trying to emulate in a sense of like, I want to be like this person one day kind of thing, or even just like, you just want to learn from them kind of a thing. What would you say are, a good way to have, the best possible first impression? Like, should it be something where you're entirely just, like, you just kind of let them take over? Or did you kind of take an approach of like, you were trying to show your skills, along with doing whatever they were having you do, kind of a thing? I guess it kind of depends on what the situation was, but
Yeah, I think it does depend. It also kind of just depends on the person you are. I think in my experience, I find that a lot of the professionals in my industry don't respond super well to like, people being like, can you listen to my demos, and like, or trying to show off what they can do, or even just flexing their knowledge. I've seen that sometimes where I'm wearing a GDC hoodie right now. This is Game Developers Conference. I see it a lot at GDC where these more kind of established composers are surrounded by younger composers, and it's like the younger composers are all trying to like one up each other with like their knowledge of like game music or game implementation. It's just like, that's not necessary. Like, just be yourself, like be an approachable, friendly person. I think that's honestly the most important thing, because I think people can really tell when you're trying to get their attention, and I don't think people like respond to that too well, especially in an industry like this where they see so much of it. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I mean, having, and I think in some instances that maybe it's in a sense common sense, but when you're in the moment and you, especially if it is someone you like, oh my goodness, it's fill in the blank person, and you're in the same room with them and you have an opportunity to possibly even work with them, kind of a thing. It's sometimes hard not to try and show off a little bit, like, hey, this is what I know, this is what I can do. But yeah, I mean, even our own experiences, like meeting, we've met a couple fairly famous people doing this, and it's, it is a matter of like, you want their respect and stuff like that, so you do. That's where the show off kind of comes from, is like, you don't want them to think you're just a nobody. It's like, hey, I actually have some sort of skill in this. But at the same time, when you look at it from whoever the celebrity's perspective or whatever, it's like, they probably get that so much that they're not, it almost might be more appealing if you don't even talk about it, and you're just totally there to kind of learn or admire, or even just, talk, right? Depends on the situation, of course, but
I'm right there with you. Like, you're right. If you meet someone that you deeply admire, it's very difficult to just be like, I'm cool, like whatever. I don't think it's a bad thing to like express that that you love their work or anything like that. You know, I think they
Right.
really appreciate to hear those things. But yeah, I think like sometimes I think asking questions, you know, if you really admire that person's work or whatever, like you probably have questions about something they did, or
Mhm.
I think that kind of thing it goes over a lot better than like, oh, look what I can do. Like
Right.
I'm also really, you know, because it shows that you're curious and it shows that you think about these things. And like, I think that sets a good first impression.
Mm.
Yeah.
Definitely, and like to add on that, one of the guests that we've interviewed is Tim Faust. You may know him in the
Yeah,
acapella world.
that's awesome. I didn't know you guys
Yeah,
interviewed him.
and so we got to fly down to Nashville and we met him. And for me, I mean, he's like my hero.
Mm,
And so when, you're just like sitting at the Airbnb waiting for him, and then he just is there. He's driving in his white Nissan and he's just there. It's
yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And then touching about like the talking about your appreciation for their work, when we also had the privilege to like get lunch with him.
Hmm.
And so when we were talking, I mentioned he had this doo-wop album that he created, and I talked to him about that a little bit, and I expressed my appreciation for that. And I was
Hmm.
not expecting like a thank you or anything, but he actually like showed interest and
Yeah.
like, yeah. So it's just like, yeah, that whole like experience, like fame is such like a interesting phenomena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It
so
is.
as you've,
Oh, sorry.
um,
I was just gonna say, like, it is hard when like you deeply admire someone's work, but then you also realize that they're just a person too.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I recently had the opportunity to work with Austin Winter. He's a composer that I've admired since I was like a young teenager and
Oh,
played
wow.
Journey when it first came out. Um, and for some reason, like he thinks I'm kind of cool and like has invested into my own career and stuff. And like, um, to this day, like I've been working with him for years now, and like to this day, I'm still a little starstruck sometimes, but at the same time, like he's just a nice guy, you know? So it's like
Mhm.
it's tricky. It is hard to you know, when you deeply admire someone's work, it adds that kind of element of like, wow, I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like this is like to add more onto that. This is like the little bit that I'll add more onto. But we interviewed he's this guy. He's the CEO of. He has a few companies. He does like uh
Lawn care
yeah,
business and
lawn care,
insulation, stuff
pest
like that.
control.
Yeah.
Like he has a lot of
Cool, yeah.
businesses, and he's a pretty well off guy. And he mentioned that, and this was a really interesting point because it seems like the opposite would be true. But he said that sometimes the most successful people and the most likable people are the ones that are willing to help you out the most. So, like in
It's
your
true.
case, like that, it's just crazy that he's been helping you out through like all these years,
Yeah.
but like that's what makes them like so likable and everything. So,
Yeah, with Austin Winter, he's mentors so many people. I don't even know how he's timed to like write music on top of like all the mentorship he does. But not only that, but I think people like that are changing the industry because when people like him have invested so much into my career, it makes it like a goal of mine to do that for someone else. And I think I think that's one of the reasons that I've found the game industry so much friendlier than the film industry is because there's a lot of mentorship going on in the games industry and not as much in the film industry. The film industry is very much like sink or swim. You have to figure out your own way into this career if you want it, you know? Whereas games is very much like welcoming. There's a lot of mentorship. There's a lot of um, funding programs and, you know, all of this kind of thing. And I think it does just make it a better space for everybody. Um, Bit of a tangent.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even with this podcast, as we've been um we're kind of in the starting out in the growing phase. Like we had our premiere and a few episodes, and now we're just starting to grow a little bit and get in that first stage.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, because as we the podcast is only possible if people say yes, right? It's
Mhm.
entirely dependent on people who are known saying yes to people who aren't known. That's pretty much what we're dealing with in
Mhm.
the beginning stages of this podcast. And on top of that, we're just college kids, right? Like
Mhm.
in a lot of situations, it'd be like, well, why would somebody take time to talk to some college kids starting a podcast with, nothing? It's entirely just their time in a sense.
Mhm.
Um, but, as more and more people say yes and more people go on the podcast, I mean, the whole idea is, we're doing that. We're talking to these people, meeting all these people. It's a really cool experience. And that's entirely to help people just like us who want to start something, whether it's a podcast or, a potato company, whatever it is, a music company.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a matter of, returning the favor,
Mhm.
like you were saying,
Yeah. I mean, when
in
you're in
whatever way you
college,
can.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no worries.
When you're in college, like when I was in college, that was like the most exciting time of like it felt like the possibilities are endless. It was
Mhm.
terrifying because like in music, like once you graduate, you're just on your own. You have to figure out how to make money doing this, you know? But like it's terrifying and it's exciting. It's like, oh, there's so many directions I can go with this. I kind of miss it to be honest. So like it's a pleasure being on this podcast and being able to kind of talk about those early steps and kind of my path.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So like kind of circling back to like what you've been doing in like composition and your whole career. What is one uh success that you've had that like you've done something right in your career and from that you learned a valuable lesson that you still keep with yourself today? And but also to add on top of that, what is one failure that you've experienced that you've learned a lesson from that still holds value today?
That's a hard question. That's like a job interview question. Feel like I'm in a job interview, which is scary. Ooh, huh. A valuable lesson. I think kind of what I alluded to before about when I put out all those emails to companies, it made me realize with all of those rejections, but that one success, that like there's really nothing to lose about putting yourself out there. And like if there's something you're interested in or something something that you'd love to work on or something, is like what is the harm in just trying? You know, what's the harm in putting yourself out there? And like the worst thing that can happen is they say no. And I learned that very early on from that experience. And that was kind of the beginning of a landslide of other things that happened. So that's what I encourage a lot of young artists to do is like put your stuff out there. Worst case scenario, you get rejected. Who cares? Who cares? You know? Um, Biggest failure. That's interesting. um, hmm. I might need to think about that for a second.
Yeah, no worries. And it can be, something that happen and you're like, ooh, let's not do that again.
Yeah.
Um, Even just a matter of like, somebody you maybe shouldn't have worked with or something, like someone that didn't, it's something that
Yeah.
didn't go the right way, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I won't name any names, but I
Right.
think this is a hard one because early on in your career, it's very hard to say no to anything because
Hmm.
anything that comes, like you'll take it, you know?
Hmm.
But I think kind of after a couple years of that, I realized like if if I really don't want to work with this person or this company, I shouldn't put myself through that. I learned through just a couple, maybe one or two experiences that
Mhm.
like you can once you're financially able to do so, I guess like I don't want to tell everyone to just say no to things if it's like a financial thing, but like, I think it's a hard one to put into words. Um, I don't think people should put themselves through situations with people who are just, gonna make their life kind of hell.
Mhm.
Have self-respect, and yeah, don't be
Yeah,
afraid
kind
to
of just
say
like
no to
have,
certain things.
yeah, being able to kind of make that final decision of like, this isn't going the way I was thinking it would, or
Mm,
like not going as well as it maybe could have or should have, and just kind of being able to
right.
cut it off when it is too much.
Yeah, or
Um,
just, these aren't even necessarily people I've worked with in the industry, but
mhm.
people in the industry who just are not good people for me, or,
Mhm.
who just kind of add not good things to my life. You don't need to deal with those people. Like just because they're well known or just because they worked on this project that you like or whatever, you don't need to deal with people that don't respect you or like don't
Mhm.
treat you well. I think that's one thing that I've learned over time. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that definitely like holds true because this is kind of, I guess it's a little bit of a tangent to that idea. But I don't know if you've seen the TV show Suits before.
I've seen like a little bit of it. It's good.
Yeah, it is great. But like one of the characters, his it's Harvey Specter, and I
Mhm.
assume you know him. Anyways, you find out in the show that he makes this deal with this one guy named Charles Forsman, and he's the appearance. It's like this idea of like appearance versus reality. He appears to be this benevolent person, but in the end, he essentially holds a gun to Harvey's head, and that uh, put a dent on Harvey's career forever.
Mhm.
And that it holds true, especially when you see it in an action like sense like that. And like just with anyone, like if something seems like too good to be true, chances are it probably is, unless the person you like know the person like.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just like being mindful about um that whole you gotta like know who you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah, just being able to stand up for yourself. I think, in the entertainment industry, it's especially rampant. And then I guess like as a female in the entertainment industry, you have to be extra careful, like and just yeah, knowing where your boundaries are and not letting people walk over them, I think is really important. And it's a tricky thing for people who are new to the industry. Um, or people wanting to get into the industry, it makes you more vulnerable to people like that. So yeah, I think it's just important to know that you deserve self-respect and or respect from other people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
So as now that you've kind of um, ventured through some of that, and you've kind of found a place that you found success in your career, is basically what I'm trying to say. Um, how would you how would you say your um, goals, like of where you want to be in the future, have kind of evolved since you started? Like, is
Mm.
it? I mean, it could be the same too, but like from when you start, when you start your career, it's like, well, I wanna do these things and these great things, and you have really high goals just kind of right
Mhm.
off the bat. Which sometimes they get achieved, and sometimes you realize down the road like that's not necessarily going to be achieved in my lifetime, kind of a thing.
Mm.
So how would you say your goals have changed, or how you've kind of like reconsidered what you're aiming for,
Yeah,
like
I
career
think when
wise?
When I first started, and I was kind of going towards the film composition route, because I was such a big fan of like these big Hollywood scores, that was kind of my goal. Like, I want to get to the top and write music for the biggest films and stuff. And that has changed over time. I mean, not only did I kind of pivot more to games, but I kind of realized that I don't think my personality is like the right personality to be doing these crazy crunchy deadlines and like, it's just not me. And so I think my goals have changed a lot in that sense. And I've kind of just been riding the wave wherever it's been taking me and it's been working somehow. Usually I wouldn't recommend that, like throw away all your goals and just ride the wave. I usually wouldn't recommend that, but it's been working for me, so I don't know. Um, but I think now my goals are kind of just like finding a good life balance, um, and hopefully financially getting to a point where I can kind of really pick and choose what I want to work on. Um, which not quite there yet. Still a ways to go on that front. But yeah, being able to find some good work-life balance, and work on projects that I enjoy is kind of just the goal now. I don't really care as much about like big successful projects or anything like that.
Mhm.
It's more about my lifestyle, um, is where my goals kind of lie now.
Yeah, finding kind of aiming towards things that it you don't have to, completely go out of your way to um, to reach, but it is something that
Mhm.
you can still improve on and
Yeah.
kind of make progress in your own way. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot
Mhm.
of sense, setting
It's more
reasonable
like,
goals.
yeah, it's more like self success rather than
Mhm.
like outward success. I think my goals
Yeah.
have kind of changed that way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. So for and maybe we've touched a little bit on this already, but like starting out, let's say someone's like, I want to go music composition all the way. I want to do this. This is going to be my career. And they're like 18, let's say, starting age of like a young adult.
Mhm.
What would you recommend are like the first steps that they need to do to
Mm.
get to a good point in their career?
Yeah, interesting. So this is more media composition, right? Rather than like the classical,
Yeah, I mean either way you
hypothetically.
can go, but
Okay. I mean, I'd probably, there's so many free resources out there. There's so much. We live in like the age of information everywhere. So the biggest thing I'd say is just start using the programs, start trying things, learning on your own. Like that's the best way to improve is to just try it yourself, fail, do all that. You're not going to learn any faster. You can read all the books. It's not going to help you unless you're trying it hands on. And everything's available for free now. So like you can literally be making music for free right now on your computer. Like you don't need money to start. You don't need just start. So that's my biggest thing. Um, Secondly, I would really like encourage people wanting to get involved in the industry to kind of do what I did. Reach out to people, ask if you can sit in, ask very nicely, like, don't be pushy. Just ask, hey, like, I'm going to be in this city on this date. I was just wondering if I could sit in with you for a day. I've done that a bunch of times and have gotten to sit in with all kinds of composers because they usually don't care. If you're sitting at the back of the room and just observing, like, reach out to people. Worst case, they say no. Those are my two biggest tips is just start. And if you can, try to sit in with some professionals. Grabbing coffee is a little iffier. That's a little harder because that requires them to take time out of their day. But you never know, especially if you're going to a conference or something. Reach out to a couple people, ask if they're willing to chat with you for 20 minutes. Worst case, they say no.
Mhm.
Put yourself out
Mhm.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. I know there was one time I'm going into kind of the aviation world for college and stuff like that.
Ooh.
That's kind of my main focus.
Oh, cool.
Um,
My dad's a pilot, or
Oh,
was.
good
He's
stuff.
retired. He's retired now.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I have family members who worked in the airline industry and stuff. And so I was like, that sounds like fun. And so anyway, it was probably a couple years ago now. Um, I happened to get in contact with the vice president of like a charter jet company, like
Wow.
the hangar for those private jets and stuff like that. And he was kind enough to allow me to just kind of sit in for a day of,
Mm.
it was like a couple hours, because a lot of it is just computer work, right? But he kind of planned that day in a sense, so it's like, okay, if you come during this time, this is where stuff is happening. And
Yeah.
then you can kind of see, I think that day was a photo shoot. Someone was
Oh,
doing a
cool.
big photo shoot with a private jet in the background and everything. Um, and it was really cool. I learned quite a bit, and he showed me like all of the stuff that he does on the daily and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, and and that led to one, getting a contact for, the
Yeah.
future, having someone in the industry that I want to get into. But also it led to, other, lesser, not necessarily profession-based things, but I mean, that was before my senior year of high school.
Mm.
And for senior year, I'm like, you senior pictures and stuff. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, it'd be really cool to have senior pictures with a private jet, right? Somewhere on the tarmac. And I contacted him. I'm like, hey, this would be a really cool thing if I was able to do this. I don't know if there's any way to get access. I don't need to be inside the plane or anything, just have it in the background on the tarmac.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he's like, yeah, I think we could work something out. And
That's
so my
awesome.
senior pictures were like me, in front of a private jet and stuff like that. And it was, all dressed up and stuff, of course.
That's
So yeah,
great.
I mean, just like, just asking like, hey, can I sit in with you? That forces you to kind of meet them,
Yeah.
whether it's long conversations or not. You are there, you've met them, and you've experienced what they do.
Mhm.
And that can lead to, other things, whether it's,
Yeah.
something simple like just pictures, or, who knows what that'll lead to down the road. So I think
Yeah.
it's even at my, just getting into college and stuff like that, I've already kind of seen that kind of thing happening in real time. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a real thing.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
might not lead to anything, but like those connections are still so valuable because that's just
Mhm.
another person you could reach out to if you have a question or, it's just good to have people like that you can reach out
Mhm.
to. And yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and also with that, like, we won't say anything to the audience because it's a little bit of like some spoilers of potential guests, but like
Ooh.
one of the people that we got to meet he's the CEO of this beef jerky company.
Cool.
And one of his like best friends is a photographer for this really popular musician, not gonna say who, but pretty much like I don't want to say like Justin Bieber level, but if you heard their name, it's like anyone in the US would probably recognize them. And so
Yeah.
the fact that and by the way, this is an entirely different story, but Devin, how we got into contact with this so we could like go to Nashville and everything was he literally sat by someone on a plane and they just started talking and we got
Oh.
the contact to that one guy.
Wow, that's
And
crazy.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
so I mean, like,
Awesome.
and I think we kind of referenced this story in other episodes and stuff, so it's definitely not a new story to the audience. But yeah, it is like, you never know where you're going to meet someone, so it's like,
Yeah.
and I mean, that was kind of one of the first big interviews we had. Is this guy's the CEO of like a beef jerky company, and he's not like a friend of a friend or a family friend or anything like that. It's like completely separate from from us. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was kind of cool. But
That's
it
awesome.
yeah, you never know who who you can get in contact with just from talking to people.
Mhm.
And looping back too, that's another reason why you should never talk badly about other people in small industries, because if you can find yourself talking to someone and not know who they are, and if you say something, they could know that person, and like it's just good to like never just don't do it. But
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And then kind of just moving right along with another question. Um, what would you say is the what was kind of like the light bulb moment in your career where you're like, and maybe it's that time, when you emailed everybody and you finally got someone to respond. Maybe it is that. But what would you say was like the moment where you went from unsure to being like, hey, this is actually something that could very well work out for me if I pursue this kind of a thing?
I think the light bulb moment came earlier on when I was in high school, when I was kind of nearing the end of my grade 12 year and trying to figure out what am I going to do after school. And I knew music was the thing I wanted to do. I just didn't know if I could. But while I was in grade 12, I found out that like sample libraries existed. For some reason, I didn't know they existed before. Sample libraries are basically, I should give context for the viewers. Sample libraries are basically sampled instruments so that you can play any instrument on like your keyboard into a software and it sounds decently like that thing. So you could have like violins and you can play a melody on your keyboard and it'll sound like violins. It won't sound as good as live violins, obviously, but pretty good. So I found out that these programs existed when I was in high school and I bought one. I spent like $800 on it. It was kind of expensive. I don't know why I bought like a super expensive one, but I spent like all my money on it. And I realized that I can make music on my computer and it sounded pretty decent with these programs. And I think once I realized that like I can just make music, I was like, okay, I feel like I can actually do this. Because before there was this big barrier. I felt like if I wanted to go into, I thought composition was this secret thing and they had access to all these special tools and like, and then when I got this sample library, I discovered that no, like they just basically have this. They obviously have a lot more of them, but so I think once I realized that, I was like, I feel like this is actually accessible. Like it's not this far off thing anymore. It's accessible. It's in front of me and I can actually do it. I think that was the moment that I was like, maybe I should go for this. Yeah.
Yeah, and like oh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so like in when you that's cool how you like figured out like that moment with like how it's just like so like easily distributed, like it's like everywhere. With in regards to music composition, whether you've like listened to like an arrangement of a song or like some movie piece, whatever it may be, what is it that you find distinguishes a good arrangement, unique arrangement from one that not necessarily a bad arrangement, but something that's just kind of like a commonplace arrangement, like it's just normal, it's like not really anything intricate happening? Like what is it that like specifically makes a piece unique?
That's a hard question. I actually don't know the answer to that because it can be a number of things. Some
Well, what do you find? What do you when you listen to the different pieces or
Yeah.
create different pieces? What do you try to look for that makes you go like, oh, that's cool, or that's
I
unique, or something like that?
I think for me, it's always just any piece that has something in it that I just feel like I would never have thought of, you know? That always makes me go like, whoa, that's cool. Sometimes it's really obvious though. Like I'll hear something where I'm like, that seems really simple, but I wish I thought of that, but I probably never would have. I don't know. That's to me, that's what makes something unique. That makes me save it and like want to listen to it again. Yeah, I can't think of anything like super specific, but that's
Yeah. And I mean, maybe that's what makes the piece unique, is that it's just such, that's done in such a way that it's not necessarily one little thing. Maybe
yeah.
it's just a variety of things that kind of add up, and you're like, whoa, that's different. That
That's
you
the
can't
cool thing.
necessarily.
It's the cool thing about music too, is like everyone has their own unique style. And so
Uh,
even just hearing someone else's music, like to them, it might be a simple, like it came easily to them. But to me, I'm like, I wouldn't have thought of it that way. When I did this collaboration with Austin Wintory, I found that all the time where he'd send me a little idea where I'd be like, I never would have thought of this melody, even though it's not like this crazy complex melody or anything, but it's just like, I don't think that way musically, but he thinks that way musically. And then vice versa. Sometimes I'd send him something and he'd be like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but that's cool. Um, so that it's always really cool just to hear how other people think musically.
Yeah, to add on that, that's a really good point, because the one genre that like piques my interest the most, and like every song I listen to is like completely different, is a cappella.
Oh yeah.
Because well, first of all, the fact alone that people are beatboxing, they can do so much with just that. But
Yeah.
like one of the songs, have you heard of the group, a cappella group Voice Play?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's their beatboxer. His name's Lane Stein, and each person in Voice Play has said this that has worked with them. He comes up with the wackiest, like goofiest, like arrangements in like its conceptualized idea,
Yeah.
that like no one would have even thought possible.
Mm.
But when you put it together, it sounds like this masterpiece.
Yeah.
And like I can definitely say that's true, because I mean, just listening to their stuff, that's what makes them like, and I think like Peter Barber mentioned this in his interview, how his favorite group that he listens to is Voice Play, because of that diversity in arrangements, and how it's just like everyone is different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's kind of like visual artists. Like they all have their own style. You look at classical artists, they've got their own techniques and things. It's kind of like that. It's like each musician has their own approach to like and their own taste, I guess, that colors the thing that they're creating.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of time for that one big question that we ask
Oh,
at the end of every podcast. And
all right.
it's not anything crazy. I don't think so, at least. It's just and it can be something you've already said, just kind of going over that again, or it can be something completely different. If our audience was to walk away with one, I'm losing the
Piece
words.
of advice.
Piece of advice. That's what I'm looking for. If they were to walk away with one piece of advice from this podcast, from this episode, what would you want them to walk away with?
I think my biggest piece of advice that I wish I could tell myself back when I was in college, is be yourself and know that like you have something to offer that's unique. I think a lot of people starting out kind of try to be someone who's already doing well, or like try to imitate their style, or try to be that person. But I think what will set you apart is what makes you unique. So lean into that. It'll take a while to figure out what that is sometimes, but you'll get there, and be confident, and you got this.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
that's no, I think that's I've kind of learned that I've had other YouTube endeavors in the past, and I actually have one that's current that's doing it's also been around longer. It's a little bit more successful than the podcast at the moment. I won't name it. I'm saving that reveal
Drop
for
links.
down the road, because it's completely unrelated to podcast stuff.
Yeah.
But that was, one of like 7 different attempts at YouTube stuff. 5 of which failed, and one of which it was a mistake kind of a thing. But I've learned that like over the years, it was always like, I want to be like this person and trying to like imitate that. And it just never worked. And
Right.
so finally I've started just kind of doing my own thing. And, it's not an overnight
Yeah.
success, right? Nothing.
Takes time.
Some people will go viral or whatever instantly, but that's unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
But as I've just kind of decided, I'm just going to do my own thing and have my own style. And some people, as I've learned, do not like that style. But other people, my other channel has grown exponentially since I started doing that. And it's, nothing crazy. I'm not famous per se, but compared to where I was, it's a massive growth. And so, yeah, I think being yourself, in a sense, is almost like an underrated way of doing things. Like
Yeah.
people always think, well, maybe it's new or it's never been done before like that. It won't end
Yeah.
well. And it's like, well, it's never been done, so you got to try it.
Also, like sometimes you just don't know till you try. Like I feel like I'm a very awkward person. I'm not very good at this talking stuff. And it's like I could try to pretend to be something different, but that's not me. And it's going to be frustrating in the long run. Or with my YouTube channel, I never liked my own voice. I have a very soft, kind of frail, whispery voice. And I'm like, I want to be Christina Aguilera, but that's not going to happen. And if I try to do that, it's just going to be stupid. Also, we already have Christina Aguilera, so why would we need another one, And as soon as I kind of just accepted that my voice is the way it is, people came. And there are people out there who like the way that I sing. And so sometimes just accepting it's just the best thing to do.
Yeah, no, that's...
Yeah, I can totally resonate with that a bit of like trying to have like someone else's voice, because like I've sung in choirs for many years now. So has Devin, and I've predominantly, I've listened to like Tim and everyone, but like this one person in particular, you may know of him, but his name is JD Sumner, and he was he was actually known as America's lowest bass singer, and he had this ungodly bass voice. And for me, myself, very much not a bass. It's I wish I had some of that, but then being in choir and singing tenor and everything, realizing that it's like, oh, I can do a lot more than what I thought I could do. Just like with working with Danielle, my choir teacher, and then like just being a part of like a community and everything, you kind of figure out your own way in there. And so, yeah, just a little snippet to add there. But
yeah, good stuff. Otherwise, I think that's about the end of our podcast here today. Thanks so much, Rachel, for joining us here. It's been an absolute
Thank you for having me.
I had a great time. And of course, thanks to all of our audience, people watching, people listening, people having it off to the side as background noise, whatever you're doing with our podcast. Thanks so much for being here. We do appreciate you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, like, share with every single one of your contacts, all that good stuff. We're here to stay, and we got a whole bunch of other podcast interviews coming up. So who that is, no idea. We'll find out. But anyway, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.